Welcome back for another installment of Fellowship of the Rink. Big episode here for everyone. We're going to open up with Joe Smith, Michael Russo breaking down the activity around free agency for the Minnesota Wild, talk about what the heck happened with Brock Boeser, and we'll also transition out of them and go over to our local prospect guru, Spoke Z, for a recap of what the Minnesota Wild did here in the 2025 NHL Draft. So, to not waste any further time, let's kick it over to Joe and Russo. This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Waggle Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions. All the stuff that makes you, well, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes a chord when you see it. That makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your waggle on? Go to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 at checkout to take 10% off your entire order. Coming off of the longest first round of the NHL draft we've ever seen, and what was for most a kind of disappointing and boring free agent frenzy, not boring here in Minnesota Wildland, we've got Joe Smith, Michael Russo. Let's get into it, guys. What was it like in the writer's war room the last couple days?
You know what was weird? I joked with Joe last night for it's just a long day. Like I was exhausted, and then you're kind of like, imagine if they had been actors. It's kind of weird. But I think a lot of it's just because you're sitting at your laptop, texting people and staring at the X machine and all that type of stuff for hours upon hours. But I mean, I think it's what we both expected. Not to be patronizing and condescending right off the hop here, but that's my middle names. But if you didn't know that this was going to be their free agency, you haven't read or listened to Joe and I in a month. We've been warning you. I mean, like, just look at their depth chart and their needs. And I think a lot of us that are around the team feel that it was incumbent on them to not block out some of their kids. Like, it's time to play these guys. So, yeah, like, could they have signed Nate Schmidt yesterday? Absolutely. But I think Wild fans that are excited for Z Boyan would rather him here and not down in Iowa. Could they have signed another right shot defenseman yesterday? Absolutely. But I think a lot of us here would like to see David Juracek get a chance. Liam Ohgren, Danila Yurov. They could have signed a backup goalie, but I think a lot of us want to see Volstead. So, but if you look at the depth chart, those were the slots that were allotted to them, and so there just wasn't a lot of openings. And so the one need they needed was a fourth line center that can win draws and maybe kill penalties. And I think they felt with Nico Sturm that they know him, and he was affordable, and he checks both those boxes. So, the one thing that Bill keeps on saying that I think fans are going to hold him to task to is that, all right, you're saving cap space to eventually go big game hunting. And so that's what he's got to do. Like, I don't blame the fans for being disappointed. They were, told 4 years to wait for, July 1st, 2025, and even told by the owner in the fall to do that as well. And it didn't happen, but you can't invent players in free agency. They wanted to sign Brock Boeser. They wanted to. But when they started to get the inkling the day before that Brock had major options, and even I think they were willing to go up to a 6-year term. I think when they realized that he probably was being swayed somewhere else, and now we know Vancouver, I think that they just decided that to pivot and go for Terasenko. Could they have gone for Mangiapane at less money, younger, a couple years? Yeah. But I think they're taking a 1-year bet. They're keeping themselves affordable. That he's tradable at the deadline as well, even though he's got a no trade. But I just think that it's got a modified no trade now. Actually, it changes. But I just think that this is what we expected. But now it's like you kind of hope that, like, all right, keep your eyes open. Is if Cade Thompson he finally says enough, get me out of here. If there's other players around the league that Bill has been open, talking about Jack Eichel, Matthew Tkachuk, Mikko Rantanen, that big guys get traded in the year. And I just think that free agency has proven that I think every year it's going to be pretty lousy. So now I think he's going to scour the landscape in the trade market for the next year or so.
And I don't think, especially with how you guys prefaced the Terasenko deal, right? I think a lot of people were prepared. Okay, Boeser's not happening here.
Yeah.
I think the entire hockey landscape was shocked when pretty much right away on July 1st, Brock Boeser signs not only a deal that was maybe a little bit lower than expected, but with the Vancouver Canucks, who was pretty much 32 on everyone's list if they were going to guess where he was going to land. What happened?
Yes. Yeah. Well, what's funny? I don't know if you remember, March 7th, I was in Vancouver. I was on that road trip, if you remember, Joe, and that was the day of the trade deadline. And I was at their morning skate, and Brock was out there, and I was live tweeting that Brock was out there. And I actually tweeted that sources were telling me that the Canucks re-engaged with Brock. Now, it obviously didn't happen at that time, but I think that it showed that, one, they had some interest still. I think that when it comes, I think what's most fascinating about the Brock Boeser deal, and this might also say something about just how incredibly good Ben Hankinson is as an agent. Like, he's, to me, one of the best in the business. Like, everybody gets paid when you go to Ben Hankinson. Like, I would, if I was a player, I wish I had him negotiate my athletic deal. Is that you think that's ethical, Joe?
Whatever gets you the bag, man.
Yeah.
So
you got Letary and Boyd one-way contracts today. The guy's unreal. But what does it say to you that they couldn't even get a third or second round pick for Brock Boeser at the time, or that's what all they were really being offered? And then all of a sudden, Ben goes into yesterday, and he's got 7-year deals at this type of price coming in from everywhere. There were a lot of teams going after them, including the Wild, were willing to, I think, go up to 6 years on him, maybe 5 or 6 years at a significant AAV. And he winds up going back to Vancouver. But I think what that shows you is how difficult it is to make a trade in today's NHL. I think this goes back to the Wild. I think we all look at, Bill Garin, and people are disappointed that he wasn't able to get trades that materialize. But I think with the cap going up and up and up, I think it's actually going to be harder to make trades. And at the deadline, they couldn't get anything for him. And then he goes into free agency, and everybody in the league wants him at significant money. And so it's really fascinating to me that it just shows how difficult right now it is to make a move when this guy was there for the taking at the trade deadline for anybody. They couldn't get a significant offer. Patrick Allvin basically announces that to the world that they couldn't get a significant offer, essentially did it in a disparaging way. I was at the press conference. And then all of a sudden, they come back to him and offer him 7 years at $7.25. Would you guys pause? Is that all right?
A lot of people are talking about, obviously, Boeser choosing to sign in Vancouver and not coming to the Minnesota Wild. But, Joe, a lot of people don't really understand that there's going to be a lot more to it than just Wild choosing not to sign players.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key thing now is everyone's going to have money and cap space going forward. So it's not like they can just overpay people and then that'll be the carrot to bring them to Minnesota. I think you need to create yourself as a destination spot for players to come here and win. I know. I think Mike's had some conversation with players covering the playoffs, and I've talked to other people too on the league about Minnesota, and I think there's a lot of really good vibes as far as the place to live and raise a family and the market in terms of the fans. But I think people want to see the Wild take another step and win a playoff round, maybe before convincing themselves to make this a long-term spot in free agency. And the good news for the Wild is Nico Sturm did pick to return in Minnesota. Obviously, Tarasenko waived his no-trade clause to come to Minnesota with the assist from Kirill Kaprizov, who chatted with him on the phone on Monday. But Mike, I think that's kind of the key going forward here. With more money in the pockets of the Wild brass, can they convince some of these guys to come here free agency or waive a no trade for that big trade in the middle of the season?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is that in today's NHL with the cap going up and up, if they are going to delve into free agency or with 3/4 of the league, it seems, having trade protection. You're constantly going to have to sit there and recruit, but show everybody that you're a destination. And the way to do that is winning. Look, the perception out there is, I know that the Wild are sensitive to this, but look, they've made the playoffs 8 times in the last 10 years, but they've also lost in the first round 8 times in the last 10 years. And I can tell you, like, when I walk into the Florida room now, because I've covered them for 3 playoff rounds and playoff years in a row, like they all know me as somebody that covers the Wild, so they always ask me about the Wild, and they all talk about, and these are big players talking about how they're so good every year in the regular season, but they just can't get over the hump. And I just feel like that's the perception out there. And so until you win, until you show the rest of the league that you can get over that quote unquote hump, it's going to be hard to recruit players in a league where there's 32 great markets, and there's soon going to be 34 great markets, and maybe even 36 soon after that. And they're just going to continue to expand this league, so it's just going to get harder and harder, especially as the cap continues to climb and everybody's got money.
I think that's what's encouraging, I guess, right now, if you're a Wild fan, is that Kirill Kaprizov at least believes that the Wild can win and has been very happy. Obviously, he talked to Terasenko about coming into play here in Minnesota. It seems like Bill Garin's been very confident talking to us about signing Kirill to an extension, which he was eligible starting on Tuesday. Mike, what is your sense on kind of where we are in that process and what that number might look like now that we have free agency kind of over?
Well, I thought for a long time that he's signing. He just seemed, everybody I talked to behind the scenes says how much he loves it here. And I know, again, I just said that there's 32 great markets, and maybe he's appealing, finds that appealing somewhere else. But the new CBA rules actually really help the Wild, because the Wild are the one team that could sign him to 8 years, where everybody else in the league, if he goes to free agency on July 1, assuming he's not traded by the Wild before that, he could sign for only 6. So if the Wild traded him to another team technically next season, then they could sign him to 8 years. So I just think that I don't think Bill and Leopold would be so publicly
confident or optimistic, or
and the other part of me is, like, I know Bill said, like, I got no basis for believing this, okay? But no basis for saying it other than total conjecture. But I know that Bill said that he was talking to his agent the last couple of days. I just wonder if maybe a lot of the homework has been done, and it's just a matter of just figuring out the sorting through everything, and essentially that it's sort of, I don't want to say agreed to, but the one thing is that Kirill's in Moscow right now. And when he signs, the Wild are going to want to do all sorts of bells and whistles, as they should. I would think that they'd want to almost wait to announce something until he's back in the country. I don't know if they'd make him, if he'd want to fly back here just for a couple days to announce something like that. So maybe they're going to, maybe they even just agree to it, and then they have their press conference when he returns here, and we're just going to be waiting until later in the summer or September. That's sort of what happened with Draisaitl last year. Remember?
Yeah, true.
Draisaitl signed right before training camp. It was actually right before, it was probably around September 4th or something, because I remember I was at the NHL Car Wash, the media tour in Vegas, and I was sitting at a table with him with like 3 or 4 other writers, and he had just signed his contract. So it doesn't have to get done right this second. So I do think, like, as I wrote the other day, like I trust the Wild when they are so confident, and I trust him that he wants to stay here. So we'll see.
I think the real move would be to sign him on the 4th and just erase the Parise Suter.
That is a good point. Joe might be not in a condition to write that day, though. So I mean,
making sure I
feel like I'm doing every time I show this. I feel like I'm doing brand. Like just go to sodastick.com and get it.
It's crazy. Honestly, I see it, and I think
that's really not why I have it, but sodastick.com. Some of the proceeds go to the Children's Hospital. Essentially, the way it works is they sell it, and then I get a check, and then I donate it to the Children's Hospital.
Nice.
The next domino to drop, other than Kirill Kaprizov, Marco Rossi, and we have been writing the last couple of months, Mike, and it has been true that he's been part of trade conversations with other teams. Teams have called the Wild about Marco's availability because they've sensed the contract impasse or stalemate, whatever you want to call it, the Wild have had with Marco. Do you get a sense, like I do, that since we got past the draft and all that stuff like that, while he could get traded, a likely scenario is he does get signed at some point later this summer?
I still don't know. Every time I come on here, I'm expecting to see that 67's jersey disappear, but it's still there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't. I know that he says, first of all, when he says he'll match anybody's offer sheet, that's a strategic thing to let everybody else know publicly. I don't know if I totally believe it. Like if somebody came in and offered him $7.201 million, which is right below that one threshold that goes over the first and third. I just don't see them matching. I don't, because they don't believe he's in that even ballpark, that vicinity. So I think it's just him saying that publicly. So I would take that for a grain of salt. I do think they're going to continue to look. I really do. Because the other issue here that's going to make, I think, bridging the gap really difficult is I don't think their side has a lot of trust that the Wild, they know that the Wild have been trying to trade him. And if he signs a tradable contract, Marco's not going to trust that he's just not going to be traded somewhere else. If that makes sense. So if it's too low and it's just essentially something that's allowing him extra time to move a very tradable contract, I just don't know if Marco's agent gonna fall for that. So let's see where this goes. I just think that this could be a long process. I know his agent's shopping for offer sheets. So we'll see where it does go. The one thing though is that like another team now, after hearing what Billy said, might just not want to do the offer sheet and then run into him in a back room one day, at meetings, and you go into the bathroom at the Palm Beach in Manalapan, and all of a sudden Billy's at the urinal. You might turn right around and leave.
God. Well, Joe, you mentioned that someone had commented on your post asking about comparing him to Braden Point because of size and point totals early on in their career.
Well, I will say this. What does remind me a little bit of the two is kind of that determination, playing bigger than their size. Like Marco, a lot of his goals are within 5 feet of the net, right? Like he's not afraid to go to those areas, and I think that's what obviously Braden Point has done as well his entire career. He had to fight the label of being too small forever, right? I think Marco's a really good player. I think Braden Point's a superstar.
Yeah.
And Braden Point's a 50-goal scorer. I don't think there's anything wrong with Marco scoring 25 goals. That's a really good player, really good 2-3C to have. But Braden Point, I think his skill set is elite in that respect. So I think there are similarities in terms of, toughness, able to go to the dirty areas for their size, not backing down from anybody. Obviously being able to defend well. Braden Point is a guy who I think if he had the better matchups could be a Selke caliber defender. So, but yeah, I think in that respect, I think Marco, kind of determination, that kind of thing. But I think, Braden Point's I think overall skill set is a step above, of course. And he's proven it in NHL, 50-goal scorer, one of the top in the league.
And I mean, he's no Louis Belpedio, but he'll serve the bench.
Yeah.
So Russo, whether you want to admit it or not, you basically spoke the Sturm contract into existence. We've talked, you guys have at least said quite a bit in your writing and on X about Terasenko and why they felt that was the move. Everyone's concern now is, are we pushing the prospects down yet again? Mm-hmm. Where do you see them slotting in? And do you think that that's a valid concern for fans who are very vocal about that being a concern?
Yep, I will. Sorry, just sending a tweet. I was replying to, that's why I was smiling. I was replying a guy with my typical sarcasm. So I just reported that Cal Peterson has a 1-year, one-way $775,000 contract. So he's like one way, and I go, you could bury that, so it comes off the cap completely if he's in Iowa. So I said, unless you're helping Craig pay the $775 in Iowa, who gives? Don't sweat it. Like fans just get up in arms about everything. So Terasenko, I mean, where do I see him slotting in? He is going to get, like, as Joe reported the other day, John Hines is going to go down to Florida and tough gig, and he'll turn that one lunch or dinner into a week.
Bring his family down there too, stuff like that.
Like all of a sudden, Billy really hitting off with Tarasenko. I'm gonna spend like 2 or 3 extra days here on the beach. So that's a good sign. I mean, we just saw Mike Sullivan do that with Mika Zibanejad. We see coaches do that a lot with players that they go to a new place and they got to sit there and try to get that guy in line. And I'm sure Quenneville just recently did that with Kreider as well. I think that's a good thing. They're going to give him every opportunity because I think the one thing that they realized or they're betting on is that it just was not the right fit in Detroit. He didn't play a lot in the top 6, and so they're going to give him every opportunity to play in the top 6. And look, I mean, first of all, he looked incredibly good yesterday. I know we're talking to him on a Zoom, but he looked fit as a fiddle. Certainly suntanned, so he's definitely going out on the water or golfing every day. And he's somebody that I think that they want to keep on his off wing because that's where he really seems to flourish, is playing on that right side. So then the question is, how does it work? Is it Rossi or Eriksson Ek next to him? And then on the left wing, do they put Boldy there, who we have seen Boldy play really well on the left side? But I think they love Boldy with Kaprizov right now. So they put Zuccarello there, which makes a lot of sense if Zuccarello's okay playing left side. And then, you have a guy that can maybe put the puck on the platter for Terasenko. And we see how Zuki has eyes in the back of his head and has this wavelength with Kaprizov, and maybe he could develop that with Terasenko. So, look, I have not been in, like, I covered that Florida run a couple of years ago when he played third line with Lundell and Luostarinen. He seemed to lose a lot of puck speed, did not have a lot of offensive chances. I didn't see him a lot in Detroit last year, although I feel like one of the games he scored against the Wild. Maybe I'm totally wrong on that. And it just feels like it's a good bet to make. Again, it's not our money. Craig's got to be the one to pay the 4.75. So if it doesn't work out, you could look at that. It really, with their cap space situation, I don't think it's affecting too much. They still have enough to pay Rossi whatever he's going to eventually earn here, whether it is matching that offer sheet or negotiating a contract under his own volition. So we'll see.
I think another part of that too is, I think like Scott was mentioning, just where does it mean for the young players like Ohgren or Yurov? And and I think that
I mean, Sturm more affects Yurov, right? The question is, does Rossi get traded? Because they really like, they like Hartman in the middle. So right now, they're expecting they're expecting that Yurov's going to have a transition. So like when I put him at 13th forward yesterday and 5th line center, I didn't look at the mentions, but I'm sure that jumped out to people. But that's where he's gonna probably have to start, and then he'll work his way up. There could be injuries in camp. Maybe they shuffle things around that they like. Maybe he looks in camp like he's unbelievable. So things could change, but that's where he is right now. In terms of Ohgren, I mean, like right now, I would love him over Johansson. I think they're going to start JoJo on the third line. And we'll see where it goes. Ogren's going to have to work his way up. Obviously, Wallstedt's going to be the backup unless Peterson outplays him, because Wallstedt technically doesn't earn doesn't need waivers, but I don't think they want to pay him 2-2 in the minors. And who's the other one that we're forgetting? And then Juracek and Boyum are going to be, it looks like, in the lineup, as long as they don't look like me in training camp. So.
And I'm going to kind of pivot here too. I got to ask, because I see everyone commenting on, the CBA doesn't go into effect until next year. Get all these contracts in now. Oh, John Tavares deferral on his new deal. Like, it's okay. He's getting it in before the new CBA. Why is that different than what happened to the Wild with Parise and Suter?
Totally agree with you. That's why I sent a source from the league when I wrote that story the other day, that the general rule is that everything now is is under because here's another one. Like, technically, like, the one thing I wanted to know is if Kaprizov signs now, we've never known the cap past 1 year. So is he under the rules? Like theoretically, I'm just saying, could he get 20% of 103, or does he have to get 20% of 95.5? I'm told it's 95.5, even though his contract technically starts when the cap's 103. So like, yeah, it is weird. I really think the Wild were sort of punitively punished. But the only thing I'll say is that the NHL's rationale there, whenever I asked Bill Daly and those people about it, because this was a Bill Daly thing, is that, and he has said this publicly to me, is that the teams that were warned. So, oh boy, hang on for a second.
Let's wrap then for the free agency piece here, guys. Like, what did you think about Bill Garin's work here? Like, anything you would have done dramatically differently? Do you like it? Are there things you're still watching for as this all unfolds?
I mean, you know, yeah, you'd love him if you could have figured out a way to get JJ Peterka here or something else. I mean, but in terms of the free agents that were out there, I am absolutely for it. Like I actually I love Boeser, but you signed Boeser to 7 times 7.5, and now if Tage Thompson is available this year or somebody else, like, you know, it takes him out of that stuff. So like this is why he's doing it. Now he almost went for Boeser, but it would have eventually affected somebody else. Besser's the only one I think he had any interest in. Like, he doesn't want to. You don't want to waste $8 million on a long-term deal on potentially Nikolai Ehlers or something, and then that takes you out of something. So I actually think it's better not to get locked up. Take the one, you know, Terasenko comes off in a year, blah blah blah. So I don't know. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I like the Sturm signing. You could have gone to Sean Curley, or you could have got another guy there, you know, at that point. But Sturm, you know, fits the mold. He's an elite face-off guy. He can kill penalties. He's familiar here. Like, I think the fourth line center at that price isn't bad, you know. So that was one need. They haven't. I don't know how much they've like crazy upgraded their center position depth. Like, obviously he replaces Freddie, center face-off circle. So they haven't really given, I don't think, Eck more help than he had last season necessarily. I don't know if that makes sense, but you know, Rossi's your number, unless Rossi trade brings something back in that respect. But you know, Tarasenko's a buy low thing. I mean, our thoughts initially were like, hey, go with Patrick Kane. Maybe he would be a guy who can, on a shorter term deal, do it. But he was signed with Detroit.
Yeah, everybody re-signed. Like everybody I wanted them to go get.
Yeah.
Like I would have loved Corey Perry. I know that. You know what? Yeah. So I don't know. Sorry, I'm
landing in LA is very fun though if they match up again.
Yep. So
no, like they for what they was available. Like, I think they showed some restraint in a sense, like that may not have been there in the past, you know, and they got the guys they needed, and you know, it's about time to see these 5 first-round picks and see how they do, and if they can end up doing well, then you don't have to worry about as many big moves. But you need guys on ELCs or cheap contracts to contribute, even if the cap is going up. So it's time to know what these guys are capable of.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that I'm looking forward to seeing what these guys do. I mean, you know, especially Juracek. Like, I find him fascinating. They gave up a lot. We're all sitting there and you know, scrutinizing it without ever really seeing him. The one time we did see him in the lineup that last year, like right before he was sent down, he made that unbelievable play in Colorado. Yeah. So like, let's see it. You know, like if they, you know, sink or swim time. This is what we really haven't gotten to see. I mean, obviously Boldy and Rossi, but we haven't gotten to see a lot of these guys, and so I think that's smart.
For sure. One last one before we do the Waggle golf question, Mike. Greg Cronin, development campus today. We're going over to talk to prospects. Greg Cronin brought in as new Iowa coach. You got a chance to talk to him and have him on your show on KFAN last week. Just what's your overall impressions, and maybe whether this could be a fit, and what are you looking forward to seeing, I guess, from how this goes in Iowa?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed talking to him. I think it's good that they have accountability down there. I know that a lot of people are just taking gospel for some stuff that were said on podcasts and written about them, but you know, I think that it says something that he could have just sat home and collected his paycheck and decided, no, I want to work, and he's going to Iowa down there. So we'll see. I think he'll bring some structure down there. I think, you know, you look at Anaheim last year. I don't know if he gets fired if Joel Quenneville's just not sitting there. I mean, obviously Pat Verbeek wanted to go and hire him and did hire him, and I think that then it kind of makes more sense, because if you look at Anaheim last year, they were one of the most, other than maybe Winnipeg, they were, you know, their 21-point increase was as high, you know, near the top of the league, and so they just seemed they got to the periphery of the playoffs, and it just, obviously the Four Nations, I think, took some momentum away from them. But if you look at a lot of their young players, they all improved, especially Jackson Lacombe. He just looked really, really good. I know a lot of people are just, you know, like they do, like they're like, people, one person says it, it just becomes accurate. Like, oh, it had nothing to do with Cronin. It was only because of Dostal. You know, like, come on, man. Like,
Yeah.
like, you know, like,
Home had nothing to do with Cronin,
Yeah.
but everything that went poorly was Cronin's fault. So
but he was on the radio. He said, he admitted that he was probably a little bit, you know, too hard on him. I think he went in there with a flamethrower the first year, because that was probably the edict from Pat Verbeek. And then he rode him win, lose, or tie the whole way. And I think that the exit meetings after his first year were harsh, that like, this is too much, even from the veterans. And I think that, I think that after year two, I think that it was that he really toned it down, started using guys like Killorn and Gudis, and there's one other guy that I know, a Strom, that I think he started using sort of the veterans more to deliver the message, and wasn't in the locker room, not, and all that stuff.
Final question, brought to you as always by our good friends at Waggle Golf. First, make sure you head over to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order.
Today kicks off Dev Camp. Let's hear it, guys. Prospect Foursome. Give me 4 players between the two of you that you're most interested in seeing here at Dev Camp this year.
Well, there's not really a Dev Camp.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of a Dev Camp. There's like 9 guys here, right? You know, they're not going on the ice.
Okay.
It's totally different. But I mean, obviously, Joe is Zeev Williams' beat writer. He's said I'm the only one covering Zeev, so he'll be around him today. I'm looking forward to seeing this young phenom Benyek. I wish they were going on the ice, just so we could see what this guy looks like, because a lot of people have really raved about him and said that, if he was 5-6 inch bigger, that he'd probably be like freaking top 5 pick. That's how talented he is. I'm looking forward to seeing him. Ryder Ritchie, somebody I'm looking forward to talking to. He had such a really quality year. Obviously went to the Memorial Cup. Now is transferred to U.S. College. Is it BC or BU? BU. Yeah. And he's one of the biggest guys that have done that. And now, you can do stuff like that. So I'm interested in talking to him today about if this is gonna become a trend. But yeah, we're not going to get to really see him on the ice. We're going to just have availabilities with him.
I think Riley Height too. Talking to catch up with him, I know with all the success guys like Hunter Haight had last year, we didn't really see Riley Height a lot because he was playing in junior. He'll probably be in Iowa to start this season. Just where is he at? What did he learn from that experience NHL preseason last year, and how far away is he from playing in the NHL? So him, Ryder Ritchie, Zeev, Kupalainen here, I think. Maybe a couple of guys that are a few other guys that are here that were draft picks from previous years. But
yeah, he'd be. I don't even know if we requested him today, but I'd love to know, just what he was thinking going back to Finland, and obviously he had a down year, and how much this is going to be, because he's going to be one of the guys that Cronin's going to really rely on and have implemented in Iowa this year. So
nice. Well, I know you guys have been blowing up a little bit on the side here with everything that's going on today with free agency and whatever the Wild have cooking. So appreciate you taking the time. I'll let you guys run and get back to all of your fun.
Awesome. See ya. Sorry if I was distracted during the show. Been a lot of stuff going on. So Scott's got some editing to do. I know Joe's not doing it.
Yeah.
A lot of
not doing it.
Yeah. There were pauses, there were like start overs, there were all sorts of things. So, all right, cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. And as promised before, we're going to kick it over here to close out with a little bit of prospect insight. Newest guys added to the organization with Spoked Z. Z, let's real quick make sure that we hit on this for the fans that either didn't watch our live stream over the weekend, didn't pay attention to the draft, or just don't know any of the player names. Let's recap the wild picks specifically. If you can just give a couple minutes on each of the guys that Judd took.
Obviously,
Okay.
I didn't dig until number 52, second round. They take Theodor Hallquisth, right shot D-man, 6'2", really good skater. He's got some untapped offense. He started showing a little bit of that as the year went on. Looked pretty good in transition. Then he plays a pretty advanced defensive game as well. Never gonna wow you with his skill. Never really gonna like do anything that jumps off the page, but plays very reliable defensive hockey. I mean, I think he probably tops out as like a 5, maybe a good 4 if he's a pure shutdown guy. He'll definitely have to grow some strength. But I mean, I thought he plays a very pro style game. And again, like by the end of the year, of all the draft eligibles that played in the SHL, there wasn't a defenseman that played more minutes than him. He ended up playing about 12 games. A couple of those games ended up playing 12 to 13 minutes. So again, just plays a really projectable game. If his offense can like take another step forward, if he can consistently show up more often, he could again potentially be a 4. But I think this is a pick that probably hits potential 5 or 6. Again, 6'2", right shot defenseman, projectable, but very simple, smart decision maker. So I didn't hate the pick. I thought they left some upside on the table, but I think down the line he's going to be an NHL player.
Next one up is Adam Banach.
Obviously, they didn't pick again to the 4th round to take Adam Banach, which to me was a grand slam home run swing in the 4th round. Big question with him is he going to be able to play in the NHL as such a short player, 5'7" center, dynamic playmaker, dynamic offense, really good skater, moves very well, played the USHL this year, adapted slowly, but eventually by the end of the year looked really good. So that is a home run swing on upside. I'm a big fan of that pick. If he hits, as far as like, especially this draft, if you want to just talk about pure upside and like skill and what they bring to the table, he would have been an easy 1st round pick. I think there are plenty of people who had him probably in their 30s or 40s, just given the skill and how good he's been, especially like at international events too. I'm a big fan of the Adam Banach pick. There wasn't very many other guys that had like remotely close to similar upside as him in the 4th round. So I thought that was a really good pick. Next in the 4th round, again, a player who is really interesting, Liam Amadovsky out of North Bay Battalion. I went back. I'm going to be clipping up a bunch of video, especially for him. I really do like this player. I thought that was a really good pick. Plenty of guys had him as a top 100 pick, but really just like a projectable power forward. He's got a ton of skills. The goals that I've seen him score have been very fun to watch. Like he's just a fun player to watch. Scores some sweet goals. Super strong. He's got size. Flies up and down the ice. Plays a pretty like straightforward game as far as just like north south. So I think that was a nice pick in the 4th round. Again, I'll be clipping up some videos of him post. After him, Carter Klippenstein, just a super projectable like 4th liner. He's a prick to play against. Super physical, solid defensively. Can chip in some offense occasionally. So another guy that just projects, maybe again like not a ton of upside as far as like he's not going to be the guy that's going to be looked at for offense or anything, but does play the NHL style. He can kill penalties. Again, really just a projectable bottom 6 guy, obviously with size. And then their last pick in the 5th round, Justin Kipke out of Victoria, one of the better defenders in the WHL as far as overages go, at least. Solid defensively, really good skater, chips in some offense, but okay pick. Again, this was the overarching thing with this draft, to be honest with you, is just like it felt like a lot of teams got super lazy and just picked for size, because there are probably 3 or 4 guys that went undrafted this year that I would have comfortably took in like the 2nd round, specifically someone like Bruno Osmanis. I can't believe he didn't get drafted. He played like 27, 30 games in the SHL this year, put up like 13 points or something, which is incredible for an 18-year-old. Could not believe he didn't get drafted. Dakota Rue Milan, who played like 15 minutes a night at Michigan, 6'1" right shot D-man, really solid. I'm pretty sure most people had him in their 2nd round, like mid to early 2nd round. He got undrafted. It just felt like they were so, and I don't think we've ever seen I think this is by far the most 6'5", 6'6" defenseman we've ever seen go in one draft. It really did. With a couple of these teams, it felt like they watched the Panthers. They were like, okay, big, physical, mean. Okay, that's how we're going to draft. And in a draft that wasn't super loaded with like high-end talent, they were guys that just went undrafted. That was very, very surprising to see. So really weird draft overall. And again, just felt like a lot of teams were, if not like just negligent, just like lazy and just drafted for size, which I thought was very, very weird.
Do you think it was interesting that Cameron Schmidt, Adam Banach, and LJ Mooney all went very quickly, like within 20 picks of each other? And teams that like Dallas picked Logan Stankoven however long ago, the Wild have Matt Zuccarello and have picked Marco Rossi in the past, and the Canadians have Cole Caulfield. Do you think there's anything to be said about teams making picks that have confidence that they can develop with lack of size?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't feel like everyone was just waiting for someone to take Cameron Schmidt. He never should have fallen that far. It was funny, like right before he got picked, I remember the live chat we were talking about it, and someone asked like, what's a similar player that has like this issue, like where'd they go? And I was like, I think Jaden Perron went 94 to Carolina, and like, I mean, I think 2 minutes later, Cameron Schmidt went 94th to Dallas. Again, Cameron Schmidt, again, another guy just in terms of like goal scoring, offense, skill, skating ability. He's a top 15 pick. It's just the fact that he's 5'7". So the fact that he fell to the fourth round, that was what surprised me. I thought the latest he would go was late second, but I don't know. But then obviously, like you said, those two guys go pretty soon after him. So it felt like there were a lot of teams that were just waiting for someone to take the home run swing on one of those guys, and then they would step in. I'm glad the three of them went, but it's crazy that they ended up going fourth round and later. And I mean, Carolina doing the funny ass. I was just I gotta pull up their draft, because once again, they just sit back. They love to trade back, and they are not afraid to take swings. And they love drafting out of Russia. Like, they trade back. They get Semyon Frolov, who we thought there was a good chance he'd be the first goalie to go in the first round before Ravensburgen. The different Russian goaltender went before Ravensburgen. That was probably the most mind-blowing pick of the lot. But then they take a swing in another second round again. Charlie Serrato out of Penn State, which I like Serrato a lot. He's fun. Was surprised to see him go. But they did it. They weren't afraid. They took Ryabkin at 62, another kid, top 15 talent. Most likely won't play an NHL game, but so much upside. One of my favorites, they take the third round, Kurban Limitov, left shot D, Russian kid, 6'3", 6'4", flies up and down the ice, chips in some offense, really good player. Roman Bausov, a massive right shot D-man, very fun to watch. And then two of my favorites, Viggo Nordlund and Philip Ekberg in rounds 6 and 7. Another two players who are undersized but insanely skilled. Viggo Nordlund is another kid. If he wasn't 5'8", probably would have gone the first round. So the most projectable style in the world, but one of the more skilled players in this class, and he's a ton of fun to watch. So I wasn't surprised to see him go late. And of course, it was Carolina.
Thank you all again for tuning in, as you do every week. Those of you that are new here, welcome. We definitely appreciate subscribing on Apple or Spotify, leaving 5-star review. If you like video more than audio, definitely check us out on YouTube at The Soda Pod. But otherwise, we're going to have content churning out for you guys all summer. Awesome interview banked with coach of the Gophers, Bob Motzko, that I believe we'll be using next week as it sits right now, if not the week following. But let us know if there's guys you want us to be bringing in from the Wild, from the Gophers, from wherever, for interviews throughout the summer. Hit us up in the comments. Let us know who we need to grab for you. But otherwise, catch you all next week. Stay classy, stay to hockey.